Hi, this is Joni Boville, and you are listening to TV Confidential.
A tiny bit of faith and a large amount of hope, or vice versa.
Yes, a large amount of hope and a tiny bit of faith, or vice versa.
Greg Ehrbar is with us for another look at recently released DVD and streaming titles that we think you will find of interest. Greg Ehrbar, two-time Grammy-nominated, multiple Emmy Award-winning writer for television, animation, advertising, and publishing for Disney, Warner Brothers, and Universal. Greg Ehrbar, also co-author of Mousetracks, the story of Walt Disney Records. You can enjoy his animation spin column twice a month, cartoonresearch.com. We're going to do some more Warner Brothers Archives titles. This is Warner Brothers, the Primetime edition, correct?
Yes, we're going to talk about some of the things. There's been this recent announcement about new Flintstones show that's going to be a revival. Flintstones being the very first primetime animated series. Well, there were other firsts in primetime with Hanna-Barbera, as well as some pretty cool things that we may have missed. Some people may know, may not know, or may not be aware are available on DVD that I want to share. I want to start with the first television special that was a combination of live action and animation from 1967, and that would be Jack and the Beanstalk, starring Gene Kelly. And Gene Kelly was the star, he was the producer, he was the choreographer, and he was the live-action director. Of course, Hanna-Barbera's animation people directed the animation. And back in the 40s, there's the famous Dance with Jerry the Mouse that was in Anchors Aweigh. So he had been working with them for many, many years. And there's another film called Invitation to a Dance, which isn't as well known as Anchors Aweigh, wasn't as successful. It was a series of dance sequences. And there was an animated sequence in there as well that Hanna and Barbera did. So for Jack and the Beanstalk, this was a new thing for TV because TV didn't have the kind of budget that motion pictures had in the 40s. This was 1967. So this, to the eyes of today, may seem a little bit crude. It's certainly not as slick as Mary Poppins or Bedknobs and Broomsticks may look.
Yeah, but for the time and considering the budgetary restrictions, it was probably state-of-the-art.
What you have to allow for is the inventiveness.
Yeah.
You can see some shadowing, you can see some of the seams, but what you also see is inventiveness, a lot of fun with the ideas of combining the two. You're never flabbergasted and saying, goodness gracious, these people are really in this cartoon environment. I just think that's true. This is not Roger Rabbit. But I don't think that was ever expected back in those days. I think the novelty was we are so used to seamless combinations that we virtually go to movies that are this all the time. Mm-hmm. CG and live action combine in almost everything we see, even in films that are not big special effects films. It's in everything. So virtually every film is a combination of live-action animation because digitally you can remove the seams. In those days, you needed to use special processes. You had to film on, in those days, a blue screen, and then you had to use they called it a sodium process or a matte, and you had to put a sort of a black, like a shadow behind it so you couldn't see through it, and you had to create this sort of sandwich over it, and then each of the live-action frames had to be photostatted so that the animators could draw the animation over it. Then you have to add to the fact that Hanna-Barbera's animation was limited. It wasn't completely limited, but it wasn't as fluid as Disney's animation was. It still was television. Now, this was prime time, so the budget was much, much higher than it would be for a Saturday morning cartoon. So what that allowed for was a 50-piece orchestra, an original score.
Not to mention Gene Kelly.
Gene Kelly, absolutely. And so the budget was higher. There were elemental sets like you would have, just like now, when you see behind the scenes, for example, Jungle Book that was remade, that Jon Favreau made. There are elemental sets that are blended in, and then the animation is filled in around that. but the animation looks like Hanna-Barbera, sometimes is fluid, sometimes is not. So the seamlessness is just not going to be there. Don't go in expecting that. Just expect entertainment, a really wonderful score that was written by Sammy, Cahn, and James VanHeusen. And you're talking about songwriters that wrote for Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby and
Which
Louis
goes
Armstrong.
back to something that would not be available otherwise on a Saturday morning budget.
Absolutely not. And this special was very well received. It was run a couple of times on NBC. It won the Emmy for Best Children's Program. And it was rerun in syndication many times. It was on the Burger Chef Weekend Theater, and they had commercials for Burger Chef and Jeff. Incrediburgable. I don't know if you're...
I don't remember Burger Chef.
They don't have that here? Okay, well, I don't think they had it in Florida either, so somewhere they had Burger Chef.
Well, they had it somewhere. I just don't remember Burger Chef.
Whoever had it, they sponsored it, and I was very grateful.
Okay.
So it has a real nice score.
So these are the things you have to think about when you watch a special such as Hanna-Barbera's Jack and the Beanstalk from 1967. Today, don't deconstruct it in terms of the animation because you can't compare it. That is literally comparing apples and oranges. Instead, think in terms of the elements of it that are available because of the budget of its time, which is the music, and the talent involved, which you have because it's a prime time, which you would not have if it were quote-unquote just another Saturday morning show.
Exactly, and if you watch Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella from 1965...
Leslie Ann Warren.
With Leslie Ann Warren, and you look at the special effects from that.
I was dancing.
I was flying. Well, if you watch that, you're still going to see the equivalent of...
And Celeste Holm.
The wonderful Celeste Holm. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Well, you're still going to see the equivalent of Bugaloo Lidsville effects.
Yeah.
You know, the horses, they look like they're by Marx toys. It just does, because they didn't have those capabilities. And you have to excuse them. You can do effects on your computer now. On your phone, you can do them. It was a massive event to have those things done. So this was an extremely ambitious thing to do a Mary Poppins kind of thing.
On a television,
on primetime
television budget.
And what Hanna-Barbera was aiming for, and this is something that isn't recognized and realized, is in the mid-'60s, they were aiming for being an all-around entertainment company. Like Disney, but also like other entertainment companies. Saturday morning was a relatively new thing. It had only really established itself in the early 60s. They weren't locked into being children's cartoons on Saturday morning because they were doing primetime shows. The Flintstones was the most successful, but they had no intention of quitting trying to move out of Saturday morning.
They also did Top Cat.
They did Top Cat, which was actually more adult than the Flintstones. Yeah. And they also had already done 2 feature films. Mm-hmm. They were getting into live action. They were doing industrial films, educational films. And they wanted to do other kinds of things. They had just built the studio. I think it was 64, the one that's at 3400 Cahuenga, that's still there. And they had the record company. And when Jack and the Beanstalk came out, the soundtrack album was released on their record label.
The short-lived Hanna-Barbera label.
Yes, indeed, which we talked about. Yeah. And on that label, they had pop and rock and progressive pop records, some stuff that wasn't even aimed at children on there. So they were trying to be more than what they ended up being known for. It's just that their attempts at those things were not anywhere near the massive success that they had on Saturday morning. And so that's kind of where they ended up being. Jack and the Beanstalk was highly successful. Alice in Wonderland from the year before was fairly successful, but not quite as much. And the success of Jack and the Beanstalk convinced NBC to allow them to produce the very first weekly primetime series that also combined live action and animation, The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
Greg Ehrbar is with us as we're talking about Hanna-Barbera, as part of our discussion of Hanna-Barbera, the Primetime Edition. We'll continue our DVD report with Greg after this quick time out here on TV Confidential. Ed Robertson, along with her friend Donna Allen Figueroa, who I understand has a new book out.
Yes, it's entitled Fall Again Beginnings. It's the first part of a 4-part contemporary romantic series set against the background of working actors.
Something that you know a thing or two
Well,
about.
you write what you know, and I have been working in the business for several years.
It is not necessarily autobiographical, but it's based on...
Sure, many of the experiences that the actors in my book have, many have happened to me, many have happened to friends of mine. It's not, if you're looking for Valley of the Dolls, it's not, it's grounded in reality.
It is grounded in reality, and it's the first in a series.
Yes.
Called the Fall Again series.
Fall Again.
Which is available as a paperback as well as an ebook and in Kindle at fallagainseries.com.
Hi, my name is Lily. My mom and dad used to fight about money all the time. Then one day, I heard them talking about this guy, some uncle I never knew, called Uncle Sam. Well, they say this Uncle Sam guy wanted them to pay him like $1 gazillion, and they didn't have $1 gazillion. So they called this company they heard on the radio called the Tax Doctor. And the Tax Doctor worked with Uncle Sam's people. I think they're called the IRS. And they were able to work it out so my mom and dad didn't have to pay Uncle Sam very much money at all. So now mom and dad are happy, and I'm happy too. Thanks, Tax Doctor.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS or state, call now and pay less. 800-649-0142. 800-649-0142. That's 800-649-0142.
Hi, this is Titus Welliver. You're listening to TV Confidential.
Are payday loans ruining your life? Do you want control over your money again? If you have 2 or more payday loan cash advances, listen closely. You may be eligible for a program payday loan companies don't want you to know about. A program that may help get aggressive and unfair payday loan companies out of your bank account and get you back on track to financial freedom. Payday loan companies may trap you into paying outrageously high interest rates, and they take way too much of your hard-earned money every week. We understand their tactics and know how to keep them off your back. We'll fight hard to help you regain control of your money. If you have 2 or more payday loan cash advances, call right now for a free consultation.
800-488-5880. 800-488-5880. 800-488-5880. That's 800-488-5880.